I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this story in Michigan of a parent who was suing a school because they had a secret gender plan for their child, which the kind of stuff enrages me. But also DHS. I'm going to read this article about DHS detailing a shooter who was attacking ICE. And I'm just thinking about the rhetoric from the left and in the media, different stories about ICE and how they just um, are just pushing that they're so awful, that it's so evil what they're doing, lying about different reports and so on when they, send people off. Um, and of course, it's making people crazy, or there's crazy people and it's just making them worse because people get so attached to politics instead of, I don't know, fixing things in their own life. I don't know, going outside, touching grass, whatever. So it's a terrible situation. No law enforcement apparently were harmed, but some detainees were actually killed. Some, they were indiscriminately firing. So we'll talk about those things today. Before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys, go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that good stuff. If you would like to support, you guys can. Did I just say that? You can leave a donation on the website. And you guys can. Well, I guess that one's kind of old fashioned. I didn't mean to show that one. I have different merch you guys can check out at the website. You guys can also check out some of my books, like my historical fiction fantasy series called The Color of God's Eyes, and my second is A Song on the Devil's Lips. I had such a good review the other day. I have to see if they'll put it on Amazon, but on like Book Talk. I had a book talker who just like raved about it, and I was so excited, so happy. People like my stuff. So also got stuff for younger readers. I got chapter books, and of course Bigger will be available for pre-order soon, but we're still like I guess a month out before it's released. So that's exciting. So exciting. And so just FYI, I did mention yesterday that I was going to go see The Conjuring, The Last Rites, and then there was someone in the audience who also liked that series. It was pretty good. It was one of their better films. And there were definitely some jump scares. My sister Sabrina, she gets pretty excited during those movies, and she did like scream a few times and like hit her face at one point. So if you know someone who's kind of scary watching that stuff, I guess it'll be a good time. The story was decent and stuff. So I guess a fitting into their saga. But there's other stories. I'm like, are they not gonna do ghost samurai stuff like that? So I don't know, but I did see it last night, and it was pretty good. So I've seen all of the films except the one that was in like Spanish. I didn't see that one. And I didn't see the second Nun movie. I think I've seen all the other ones. So um yeah, so just FYI, it was pretty good. Okay, so let's start off with the breaking news. This is a Fox News article. Dallas ICE shooting, FBI probes targeted attack after gunman opens fire. 3 detainees shot, including at least one fatally at Dallas ICE facility, officials announced. The suspected attacked, identified by the sources to Fox News, 29-year-old Joshua Jan, died after turning the gun on himself, authorities said. Um, the Department of Homeland Security (DHS) said Wednesday that the deranged gunman who opened fire at a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement field office in Dallas, Texas, had fired from a nearby rooftop. The shooter fired indiscriminately at the ICE building, as well as at a van in the Sally Port where the victims were shot, DHS said in a statement. 3 detainees were shot, 2 are deceased, and the other is in critical condition. The gunman was found with a self-inflicted gun wound. DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs Tricia McLaughlin has since told Fox News that DHS and ICE made a mistake, noting that 3 detainees were shot and 1 detainee was killed. Okay. Sources familiar with the investigation identified the gunman to Fox News as 29-year-old Joshua Jan. We can confirm the shell casings were found with anti-ICE messages on them, DHS said. This was an attack on ICE law enforcement. DHS is working with partner agencies on the ground. Please join us in praying for the victims and their families. So, isn't it wild that you get all these revved up folks? I'm gonna just assume that they're on the left here, upset with ICE, and then you go and you shoot indiscriminately, and you end up killing the people that you want to stand up for. And don't get any law enforcement. That's what's really one of the things that's really crazy about this. I just my mind can't wrap around the madness of these people that go out of their way to do all this crazy stuff. And I had heard Charlie Kirk shooter that he didn't doesn't want had maybe acted up in court or something about not wanting the death penalty or something. I have to actually double check that now that I think about it. But I think these people, because some people are against the death penalty, and they're like, oh, they should just have to live out their days with that on them, and being killed is too easy. I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of people fear death, and the fact that someone takes your life versus you being able to do it yourself, because I don't know, they're scared of the wait, they're scared of the process, they're scared of repercussions. And I mean, one way or another, you're going to face final judgment, and that's not going to be fun one way or another. But not everybody believes in that stuff, but they're going to find out. But it's too bad he wasn't brought to justice. And you see a lot of these people, they'll go out and they'll do these shootings, and they expect to be taken down by law enforcement. I would much rather they're caught, they're captured, and they have to go through the process. And I think actually them having to go through trial and face the harshest penalties for what they do is a good thing for all who are watching. Unfortunately, we have like Luigi Mangione, whatever his last name was, who killed the CEO. They're trying to take out the terrorism claims and other stuff and make it like a lower sentence. So I'm like, y'all can convict Trump over writing a check and make him a felon that's always going to be hanging over him unless they get that appealed. But what's the point, I guess? That's going to be hanging over him, but y'all can't get it right about someone murdering a father and a husband in broad daylight. Like, that city's a joke. Cornyn blames Democratic leaders' rhetoric for Dallas ICE shooting, cites rise in political violence. Senator John Cornyn, from Texas, condemned the Dallas ICE field office shooting Wednesday, linking it to what he described as radical left rhetoric from Democratic leaders, and warning that such attacks on law enforcement reflect a disturbing rise in politically motivated violence. Today's shooting at Dallas ICE field office is one in a series of attacks at ICE Gov and Border Patrol facilities in Texas. Cornyn said there should be no doubt that recent anti-law enforcement rhetoric from radical left and contributed to the uptick in violence, whether it's Gavin Newsom's anti-ICE policy. It is really something that is happening after Gavin Newsom's stunt that they pulled like he had tweeted something at Kristi Noem like, "Oh, you're about to have a bad day," which is ominous and creepy and something you shouldn't do at an elected official, especially like a woman, guys. And then they decided to pass some kind of law or something, so ICE officials will have to like unmask, and they can't control federal agents like that. But Gavin Newsom and really any Democrat who really, really wants a lot of attention have been getting themselves arrested, have been protesting, just getting really radical because their base is really radical. Back in July, we read an article from Axios how there were different Democrats talking about how their base really wants action and not just talk and want them to do radical things. And it just kind of gave the view that they've created a monster and they don't know how to handle it. And so a lot of these people go out and they want that attention and they'll do the most radical things to get attention because they want that radical, passionate base to carry them throughout a primary. Now, of course, that's not going to help you in the general when you have all this crazy stuff. That's a problem with Beto O'Rourke. That was a problem with Kamala Harris. I mean, Kamala Harris was very radical, but a lot of the positions and the things that she took, I don't know how much of it was really trying to stand out and get eyes on her at any cost. And Beto O'Rourke, going out, yeah, we're going to take your guns. That doesn't work out too well for you when you decide to run for the governor of Texas. So I don't know, these people act as though there's not an entire internet, that someone won't come together and make a compilation video like Donald Trump of all the things that they've said. Zoran Mondani, I've seen, people like one guy, like, actually went to people and pretended to be a Zoran supporter and was asking like, hey, do you support this? Do you support that? But they're listing like some of the things that he's actual policies that he suggested as of late, but also things that he's said in the past in different interviews and stuff. And people who claim that they liked him after they heard more about him, they weren't so sure. Now he's, probably going to win, unfortunately. And that's the grave, I guess, they're going to dig in New York. But a lot of these folks are really radical and they say stuff online, on TV, and we can look up the receipts. We can. And everything, especially with like Twitter and TikTok, how fast stuff spreads. Like it's harder to find stuff from like, I don't know, it's like 20 years ago, I guess, about when maybe a lot of stuff wasn't like re-uploaded online like that, or some stuff you'd have to go and dig in the library of C-SPAN. But today, like, people will clip stuff immediately and it's on X, like trending. That's how I see a lot of the snippets or news or whatever, just stuff that people repost, um so for people to just lie about all this kind of stuff is wild to me. And I do think their rhetoric plays a big role in all this. I recall when Kamala Harris likened ICE officials to KKK. She did that, and she's not the only one who's done that. There was another Democrat who did it recently, but I remember her doing it. And I, pointed that out during, the election, that this is the sort of rhetoric that she pushed out. So when people are making it seem like these ICE agents are demons who are so cruel, and then they're running different reports, that are false or just really sympathetic. Like a couple months ago, I saw a report about someone who had been deported, and they're like, oh well, he did a crime back in the day, but he served his time, and because of the crime he wasn't able to get like real citizenship, and now they want to send him away, but he's got a family. And I'm like, okay, well, what did he do? And I looked into it, I'm like, he killed someone. He murdered someone. I think it was like a shopkeeper. Like some kind of robbery of a store. I'm like, he killed someone. And I think it was kind of brutal too. I'm like, that's who you're like sympathizing? Like, oh well, it was such a long time ago. You're lucky he wasn't hanged in the public square. I mean, we don't really do that, but geez. He killed someone and got to stay here eating food from our prisons with taxpayer dollars or whatever, and then got out and got to stay after that. Like he should be extremely grateful. But I was just floored. I'm like, he killed someone. Not accidentally. It's not like it was a car accident or something, or even like, something that was really reckless, like a drunk driving or what. No. I'm like, oh my gosh, he has a family. He loves someone. I'm like, they can go wherever the heck he's from. But he killed somebody. One thing that the White House did do, I mean, so you have the media pushing all of this rhetoric. You have all this rhetoric from the Democrats, and those are issues too. But while they're making it seem like they're just demons doing all this stuff, you do have Trump on the other hand and the White House who are like gleefully doing this stuff while trolling everybody who's upset about it, basically. The other day, now I did think this was funny. I did laugh. Not appropriate. I maybe still not appropriate, but I did think it was funny. Or at least I did laugh. The White House took the theme of Pokemon and they cut up like the theme, like the original, I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. That song. And they just put in clips of ICE agents arresting illegal aliens. And then they made Pokemon cards. Let me see if I can find them real quick on like X or something. They made Pokemon cards. Yeah, Homeland. Like here's one. Like with the criminals and what they did. I mean, it's top tier trolling. I'm not sure that it's as appropriate for the government to do. But I guess it's not their worst memes that they've done. So they've got their name. They got their crime. Sexual predator convicted of second-degree criminal sexual conduct with a victim under the age of 14 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you can see the bottom here. It says weakness because on Pokemon cards it'll tell you like their strengths or weakness or whatever. Is ice. Their weakness is ice. So that's wild. That's wild. I mean, those are things that normally like a campaign person might do. Like I might have made some stuff like this maybe at the Michigan Republican Party. I'm not sure that they would have approved this if I had thought about it, but maybe. But there's someone who's a millennial or Gen Z or something in the White House making this stuff, coming up with these ideas and pushing it. If I play this song, I hope I don't get flagged, but here. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test. To train them is my cause. I will travel across the land, searching far and wide. Each Pokemon to understand the power that's inside. Pokemon, gotta catch them. It's you and me. I know it's my destiny. Like, yeah. I wonder, I'm assuming they didn't get any kind of permission to use that music or anything like that. If there'd be any sort of repercussions from the property owners of Pokemon, Nintendo, or whatever, but I don't know. I don't know. So again, you have these crazies and the media and the Democrats inflaming all this stuff and making it seem like we are demons, Trump is demons. How dare we cheer on all this stuff? And then on top of that, you have the Trump administration posting this stuff that like it's just basically to troll them and I guess the people that they're catching. I do think there is a thing that I like about it because there's like an element of shame there with some of the stuff that they post. Like we got you, you should be ashamed. I hope you feel humiliated. Crime is bad. And hopefully that helps to deter more people from committing future crimes. Um, but I'm not positive that this is the best use of the White House. Though I did think it was funny. I'm not gonna lie, I did laugh. I did get a chuckle out of it. Um so I don't have any confidence that the Democrats will change up their language. I don't have any confidence that the media will change what they're doing because they don't like the agenda. And they don't like how many Americans are on board with it and how high Trump's approval numbers are on it or not on it or whatever. So they're going to keep pushing out these exaggerated stories about these people being deported or people getting wrong information. And I just want this stuff to stop. There's been so many things in the past 2 weeks. We had Charlie Kirk's assassination. We had, which by the way, the media is trying to spin it like, oh, we got a copycat sort of situation going on because Luigi, wrote stuff on his bullets, and that Tyler Robinson wrote stuff on his bullets, and this person wrote stuff on their bullets. It's like, okay, but these all these people, I don't think it's just a left like a copycat like serial killer kind of thing. I think it's um they are copying and doing that, but the bigger thing is, hey, these people are indoctrinated with left-wing ideology and they think that violence is the answer. They think violence is the answer. There's a great video of Charlie Kirk when he's on a college campus and someone's like, well, what are you doing here? And he says that line, it's pretty famous now, when he's like, we have to talk. Like, if you don't talk to people, that's when the violence starts. When you don't talk, that's how marriages end and divorce. And he went down a list like, we need to communicate, we need to talk. And then the person who's, I guess, a trans person responded and is just like, okay, but basically your speech is violence. Your speech is violence. And speech isn't violence, but that's what the left has been pushing for a long time. And so they haven't, I don't know, been reined in. I've been watching different people like Ben Shapiro and Michael Knowles, and back in the day, Milo. But I know Milo's coming back, but Milo's not a good guy, guys. But when these people go on college campuses, and people would act crazy, and they'd protest, and they'd riot, and they go in, and they wouldn't listen, and they would interrupt, and that's been going on for years. For years prior to Trump being elected, people wouldn't listen, and people like Ben would try to let people know that, hey, this is chaos, this is madness going on in these college campuses, and it was ignored. And some of these people are adults now doing all kinds of crazy stuff, but that culture didn't change, and people got more radical, like people harassing Jewish students on campus, or shutting down college campuses for the sake of the Palestinians and so on. So it just continues to get worse. And so now we're at the point where Charlie Kirk, who just wanted to talk and engage in ideas, and who was pretty inclusive, like he was right. He was on the right, he was conservative, and he is Republican, or was Republican. That's true. But he liked talking to different people. He liked sharing his perspective. He liked hearing their perspective and challenging that. And he was open-minded on some things and had changed positions on some things. And excuse me, so he's not like totally just bullheaded and unreasonable, though he was firm, but not unreasonable and unchangeable. And they killed him. or Tyler Robinson killed him, but he was indoctrinated with his left wing ideology, and he thought Charlie Kirk was hateful. And it's really you you guys know I've been saying like, oh, if they cheered for Charlie Kirk being killed, they would kill for you. They cheer for you being killed. And Charlie Kirk, he shares obviously a lot of opinions that a lot of people have. And so there was one video, I think it was like the line at his memorial. And so someone was going back and forth with the comments. I first saw their comment because someone had responded to their comment because they're like, oh, well, Charlie Kirk, well, they had said, you mean just like how he said that people should be publicly executed and it should be quick and it should be televised? Well, it certainly was. So, oh, he called for the execution of people, therefore he should be executed. Now, I have seen a clip going around saying like he would want to watch people's like live execution or something like that. But the full clip that they cut out, and this is like one of the most sickest things to me, he was talking about pedophiles. Like he wants to see them publicly executed. And maybe you don't want to watch a public execution, and maybe you're not like keen on the death penalty or whatever, but I think most people have a pretty strong revulsion toward pedophiles, right? So what's the purpose of chopping out that clip where he's talking about pedophiles to make everybody just think that he wants to see people hanged? Like, these people aren't good people. They're not good people. That was probably one of the craziest hack jobs I've seen about different videos going on. So I responded to them. I'm like, are you talking about the clip where he's talking about pedophiles and then it was cut out? And they're like, oh, well, that doesn't matter because think about all the other things that he stands for. So let me read some of their comments. Does it really matter the context of it when we can take full clips of this man and it still spreads the exact same message? And go ahead, why don't you defend for me him saying that school lunches for elementary children, why do they write children 3 times? It shouldn't be free. What's the defense? So the first part, of course, context matters because how can you critically think about what the person said and truly understand them without context? Like, there's a game that we play in my house, and my sister Tina, she will just listen up for different quotes from people that they'll say. And if it sounds crazy, maybe it's a joke, maybe it's, a dumb like blonde moment or something like that. And whatever it is, she will, if she finds it interesting, she will take note of it and she'll put it in her master list. And then maybe on Thanksgiving or something like that, or Christmas, a time we're all going to be together. Well, I guess we're all together all the time, but it's usually a special occasion thing after the quotes have built up. She'll put together a PowerPoint, and it's a game like who said what, and we have to guess which person said which quote, and there's no context provided. And you might be the person who said the thing, but if you don't remember the context, it's just like a really, really wild quote. And she's like, I don't provide context, I don't keep context, it just is what it is. So if you don't have context for different stuff, it just obviously gets really confusing, but people are purposely leaving context out to make him sound terrible. So yeah, the context matters. It's amazing to me how many people have told me, like, why does the context matter? Like, I was debating someone last night before I went to the movies, and they're like, and they just kept like they posted like a bunch of clips of Charlie Kirk to prove he was racist. And I like to bunk the stuff or whatever. I'm like, well, isn't that his voice saying these things? I'm like, yeah, it's his voice saying these things, but these things are chopped up to make gullible people believe he's racist. But if you look at the context, like what he said isn't racist. And eventually kind of ended with them saying, well, I think it's racist. I'm like, why? Like, prove what he said was racist. Like, explain. And they didn't want to explain. They just wanted to feel that way. So that's what it is. But they think that Charlie Kirk has some egregious opinions. So they start with, oh, he said that children shouldn't have free lunches or something. he probably doesn't think all children should have free lunches. And guess what? I agree with that. Like, what's the defense for that? Some families are really rich and they don't need that sort of assistance from the school, from the state, or whatever. They don't need that, especially if they're going to pay for it with money that they confiscate from like the middle class or something, you know? So why should all families get the access to the free lunch? Like I don't know. To me it seems like something that liberals should be able to like kind of grasp, because they disproportionately kind of, like either eat the rich anyway. So why would they I don't know, want every like all the stuff to be distributed equally to everybody? Like I how it used to be with the school lunches is that if you were in a certain income bracket, you might get reduced prices or you would get free lunch totally. And there were periods of my life, my whole entire career in school, I was either reduced lunch or I had a completely free lunch. And I didn't really realize it was about income until I was in middle school, and someone was like, "Oh, you must be at this bracket or something." And I was like, and they're like, "How much does your dad make?" And I was just like, "That is like not your business." And I'm like, "What is wrong with this kid?" It was so rude. Um, yeah. So but I had either reduced lunch or I had free lunch. And my parents, they had a lot of kids. They had 7 kids. Um, by the time the last two were in, it was just two, my youngest two sisters in school. We had moved out to Clarkston, which is like it's a suburb, and a nice community and stuff. And we never like made it like rich or something like that, but we lived together and we were all working, and pretty much covering a lot of bills together or whatever, the family unit, like people who were adults. And so my parents had less to kind of pay for. And they're at that point they're like, okay, we could still kind of qualify for reduced or even the free lunch. But at that point they're like, we can pay for this. And it seems kind of weird because we it was a nice kind of house that we were living in and stuff. And they're like, we don't need to do this. So they just paid for the lunch themselves and didn't sign up for the free lunch at that point. But I went to school, especially when I was like graduated from like Holly High. That's a more rural area. So I've lived in like an urban school district, a rural school district, and then I lived in the burbs. So I've had a pretty diverse upbringing, I guess, in Michigan. And there were some people well off, really well off. There are a lot of poor people for sure, who needed help and needed assistance, but not everybody did. So I don't know. I think that's a pretty easy defense. Like that's a pretty easy one. Their next comment was, "Go ahead. I would like for you to defend him, saying that if the future of his 10-year-old daughter gets assaulted and they didn't write this very well, and falls pregnant because of the assault, that she would carry the baby to term, and that's what should happen. What's your defense?" Okay, I agree with Charlie here. I'm sorry if people disagree. Like I know that's a really touchy subject for a lot of people, but my defense, and I replied to them, and I didn't get a chance to see what they said in my response, but I said, "Why are you offended that a grandfather would not force his daughter to kill his grandchild? Like why does that offend you? Why does that make him a monster that he wouldn't force his child to murder his grandchild?" It's a very difficult situation to be in that you would never want to wish on anyone. But I don't know, people bring it up so often who are pro-choice. I hope they don't wish it on anyone, but it's weird how much it gets brought up. I know it happens. But I've definitely seen people say, "I hope you get raped one day." I'm like, whoa. Well, so it's happened, definitely. Or I have seen people say things like, "I hope your daughter gets raped," or So people say all kind of crazy stuff in their defense for killing the unborn, but it if you whether it's that age or older, which if they're very small, you have to have like a serious conversation of like how healthy that's actually going to be for them. But it won't undo the trauma. It won't undo what happened. You don't treat rape trauma with an abortion. That's not what you would do. It doesn't stop birth from happening. If the baby's inside of you, it's either going to come out alive or it's going to come out dead. An abortion doesn't poof it away like it was never there to begin with. It doesn't dissolve it. If you take the pill, you suffocate / starve it to death, and then you take another one to expel the body. And when that baby leaves the womb, that's birth. An abortion is a forced birth to a dead baby. You're not forcing someone to go through it. It's unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because you were forced into that situation by an aggressor. You begin the natural process of gestating the child. So the only other act of force is either, well, the next introduction of force would be the abortion. If I do nothing, you're going to have the child. But it's really weird to me that people think you're a monster if you're like, okay, well, if this is a horrific thing, but we need to try to maximize the most liberty. And if death is something that doesn't have to happen, why would we purposely murder someone? You know? So, and then someone said, I thought it was a choice. Some people don't think like it should be a choice. Like I was having this conversation during when we were having like debates about prop. Forget what prop it was, but in Michigan when they put abortion on the ballot, and I asked like Democrats, I'm like, okay, they're like, what if your daughter gets raped? I'm like, okay, what if she wants to keep the baby? Would you let her keep the baby? And they're like, no, I wouldn't let her keep that baby. Because if they're young, if they're a minor, they can't consent. So that's they can have an opinion or whatever, but they're, to me it seems weird that a child would be like, yeah, let's kill that baby. That's, you know, but even if they're 16 or what, like if they're a minor, they need your consent. I mean, I guess they can appeal to the court in some cases or whatever, depending on the laws. Usually, I guess, basically in a state, maybe you can get some certain exemptions, but well, no, it's probably not every state, but there's a lot of states you can get exemptions. Like even in Michigan, you would need a parental consent, and there are ways to get around parental consent, but you can go to the court and get that overridden or whatever. So you would force your kid to do that if they were in that situation, even if they wanted to keep the baby. And by the way, there are parents who force their kids to get abortions. Say, I'm going to kick you out the house or whatever. They take them there. They make the appointment. They coerce them into it. And they weren't raped. There are some terrible parents who won't help their child through all that stuff. But killing Charlie Kirk, being like, yeah, kill my grandchild, that's heinous to me. So anyway, they're like, oh, Charlie, defend this. This is so indefensible. And I'm just like, I agree with Charlie. 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 Oh, I don't agree with Charlie on this because I'm more radical than Charlie, you know? They think he's so terrible. And then the next comment was, I like to know this from you personally. What's your defense on him saying that if a black pilot gets on an airplane, he's going to question their education, that regardless of how high a black woman can have their education, they're never gonna be taken seriously in that field? What's your defense to that? Because that's not taken out of context. That's the context. No, I don't think you understand. That's not the context. You're saying things, but you're not actually explaining what the context is. If they were explaining the context, they would be able to really describe his argument or whatever. I've talked about this so much, but the black pilot thing, Charlie Kirk saw, I did post a link for them to go watch him actually explain it, but Charlie Kirk, you know what? I have the clip. Let me just play the explanation because he was interviewed by Megyn Kelly. I could explain it, but let me just scroll through my videos real quick because I know I have it saved because I keep reposting it. But his critique of it all is really how these racial policies make people more racist. So I think he actually has a valid point.
June 2021 clip, but it was making the rounds on X, of the CEO of United Airlines, Scott Kirby, talking about their quotas over at United for diversity in the ranks of pilots, which is extremely controversial for obvious reasons. Here's the clip that you were reacting to in South 13.
Military. How is diversity and diversity targets working into the Aviate Academy?
We have committed that 50% of the class of the classes will be women or people of color. Today, only 19% of our pilots at United Airlines are women or people of color. And by the way, from all the data I've seen, that's the highest of any airline in the country.
White males don't just dominate in the cockpits, also in the C-suite at United Airlines.
Well, look, at United, I'm proud of the diversity that we actually have in our C-suite. I think if you look around corporate America.
Correct me if I'm saying though, so this is just based off your website, the people you list as executives, but out of 11 people, 3 are women. I believe 1 is a person of color.
That's correct. But, in corporate America, I think,
That's a low bar. How do you raise your own bar?
Well, a lot of this is, focusing on it. We have programs one of the things we do is for every job when we're doing an interview, we require women and people of color to be involved in the interview process.
People freaked out because you said the thing that you're not supposed to say, but that's what you're known for. Here he is in SOT 14 on Charlie's show.
I mean, you want to go thought crime? I'm sorry. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
The meltdown after this with people like, oh.
Yes, and I want to just reiterate the essence of that clip that was missed by almost everybody. Jordan Peterson, to his credit, really picked up on it, which is what I was trying to be, very vulnerable with the audience, is that DEI invites unwholesome thinking. And I said, I was saying in the clip, that's not who I am. That's not what I believe. But what it does is it makes us worse versions of ourselves, Megan. That's the whole point of what I was saying, is that I now look at everything through a hyper-racialized diversity quota lens because of their massive insistence to try to hit these ridiculous racial hiring quotas. Of course, I believe anybody of any skin color can become a qualified pilot. That has never been my contention. I mean, it's silly. It's bigoted to think otherwise, right?
Ghetto Gospel. Okay, Ghetto Gospel. I'm not familiar with that page, but they're the ones I guess posted on Instagram, and then someone reposted on X. So that's the context, that you had an airline saying, oh, we only have X amount and we want to jump to like 50%. It's like, okay, how are you going to do that? Is your hiring pool like capable of that? And then if your focus is on like race and gender, that to that degree where that's your priority, are you going to cut corners? Because a lot of people do cut corners when they're trying to drive those sort of quotas. So if their priority is I want this person to be black instead of I want the best of the best, then what that does is that starts making the public kind of worry, like, oh gosh, I hope that person's not DEI. I hope they got this job because they are the most qualified for that position. So his whole issue with DEI and the whole black pilot thing is that DEI conditions you to be racist. It conditions you to see things in a racialized sort of way. And he's correct about this. He is absolutely correct. This is the crazy thing about it. People should know that Charlie is absolutely correct about this. Because if you say Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, how dare you? That's racist. Why is it racist? I thought you liked DEI. You think that diminishes her. That's why you don't like it. You don't like him saying Ketanji Brown Jackson is a DEI hire because you think it diminishes their accomplishments. And it does. They could have just been selected without Joe Biden saying, I'm going to pick a woman. I'm going to pick a woman of color. But they made it about race. They let you know that there was a quota. And you can't tell me that Kamala Harris was the best person for that job. Are you kidding me? Or Ketanji Brown Jackson was the best person for that job. I'm sure they could have found another liberal judge that, I mean, maybe she's the best for what they wanted to do, because she's certainly an activist. She's certainly not an activist for sure. But they get offended if you say, "Oh, well, they only got there because of affirmative action." They find that offensive, even if the person admits that. They find it offensive. So Charlie Kirk is right, or he was right, and people are so mad about it. I haven't done a little video about that one yet. I keep saying, okay, that's gonna be like the big one, because that people keep bringing it up. I've talked about the black women don't have the brain power or whatever. He was talking about specific black women, Sheila Jackson, Michelle Obama, Joy Reid, Ketanji, I guess, or whatever. Because Sheila Brown, Jackson, or is it Sheila Jackson? I don't remember. Sheila and Joy Reid like flat out said they wouldn't have got where they are without, affirmative action. Michelle Obama, I believe, had said that her professor said that she wouldn't have got there with the grades that she had, without affirmative action. So they admit that they were unworthy academically of those positions and they needed that handicap. But if you mention the handicap, they're upset. So they want the benefits of it, but they don't want the stigma. And that's not how life works. It's just a total lack of accountability. And you're mad at Charlie Kirk because he pointed it out. But anyway, yeah, they're like, oh, Charlie Kirk's positions are so radical. How these are indefensible positions. Okay, they're not indefensible, and they're things that I agree with. So what do you think about me? What do you think about me? I'm more right wing than Charlie Kirk. Anyway, moving on. I want to play this video. I saw this on TikTok today. Unfortunately, this is going on in my state. There was a parent who is suing a school in Michigan because there was a secret transgender plan, I guess, that the school was doing, and the school kept defending it, that it's, I guess, their right to do that. So I'm saying right here and now in Michigan, we need a parental rights and education bill, aka a don't say gay bill in Michigan. And that needs to be the push. Absolutely.
A school employee sent us an academic report with notes for my daughter's past and current teachers. But oddly, some of the teachers' notes talked about a boy, or at least referred to a boy's name and used male pronouns. I assumed this was a mistake. So I emailed the school employee to see if she had inadvertently included another child's information in the report, but she didn't respond. My husband and I discovered that the school, including the counselor that we had put so much trust in, was socially transitioning our daughter and hiding it from us. We later found out that teachers and staff had been treating our daughter as a boy without our knowledge. They continued to use her real name and accurate pronouns when communicating with us. I was shocked, betrayed, and heartbroken. We met with the principal hoping that he would be as shocked as we were, but he wasn't. He said it was school district and Michigan policy to treat our little girl as a boy without telling us. Going into this meeting, Dan and I had hoped that the principal would be as concerned as we were, but we left feeling devastated and not sure what to do next. There really are no words to capture the traumatic impact of the school's action on our young daughter and our family. And in the days and weeks that followed, it was like she was emerging from a cult. Multiple times a day, she would ask us if we loved her. She had been taught to not trust us, that we wouldn't understand her, and that we wouldn't accept her, which is absolutely false. But what really broke my heart is that my sweet girl, She was led to believe that she was broken, and she is not. She was made in the image of God, and she is beautiful, intelligent, and kind.
This kind of stuff enrages me. One of the many reasons why I'm not into the idea of public school. But in Michigan, there's all these candidates that are running for governor, Democrat side, Republican side. I want to promise that we're going to have a parental rights and education bill. That's going to be question number one. If I get a chance to go to any debates, talking one-on-one. And in Michigan, we got a lot of LGBT. It seems like we got a lot of LGBT people who are say they're trans or whatever. I mean, we have very left-wing people who are at the top of our government right now. Our attorney general is a lesbian. And a crazy lesbian. Oh my gosh, she's a crazy lesbian too. So I think it's a pretty gay friendly state. It's like if you wanted to leave Florida and come to Michigan, to live a more LGBT lifestyle, I guess this is kind of the place to go, as long as you don't end up in Hamtramck or Dearborn or something, But I don't know how, I guess I guess I don't know exactly the demographic makeup of that is going to be. I mean, we had a lot of vigor, I guess, from parents and stuff during the midterm election, but and Tudor Dixon was our candidate, and she focused a lot on parents' rights and trans stuff. But people were so driven by abortion, and Tudor Dixon is pretty conservative on that issue, and she had stuff that was taken out of context, and just she got hammered. If you didn't live in Michigan during that time, I'm sure other states have crazy ads during election time. The ones that were running about Tudor Dixon nonstop with the abortion ads were just insane. Just absolutely insane. So like and then she had one about like if a child is raped or whatever, would you make her have the abortion or whatever. I think it's important probably for I don't think there should be an exception, by the way, but I think it's probably important if you're going to be a politician to phrase it in a way of, we cannot discriminate against life. And because they're really trying to get that soundbite, like what they did to her. So you just have to say, I don't support discrimination. And I think that's the way that you have to phrase it. Okay. So yeah, they just hammered her, and it was nonstop. And people came out to really, really push for that. That was when Roe v. Wade was just overturned. And unfortunately, we lost that big time at the ballot box. And it wasn't just Democrats. It was Republicans went out there and supported to change our Constitution on that. So I wonder if the school said that that's Michigan policy. And I don't know what they're referring to. I have to look more into it. I just saw this today. I wonder if any of that framework is from the constitutional amendment that they passed regarding abortion, because there was some language about about deciding to do certain things with your body, and it didn't have any kind of age stuff on it. And I'm curious if any of that reasoning is somehow revolved around that, because if it is, parents are going to be livid. Let me just read. This is through the Alliance Defense Freedoms article about it, so it's going to be biased toward them or whatever. But let me just go through what they said about it, because they are suing the school. I don't know that area very well. I did go to a gym out in Rockford for like a Ninja Warrior competition some years ago, but Yeah. The following quote may be attributed to Alliance Defending Freedom Senior Counsel Kate Anderson, director of ADF's Center for Parental Rights, regarding an order Thursday from the U.S. District Court from the Western District of Michigan allowing the case Meade versus Rockford Public School District to move forward on Dan and Jennifer Meade's claim that the school district violated the couple's parental rights by treating their middle school daughter as a boy without her knowledge or consent, or taking steps to conceal these actions. Parents have the right to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children without government interference. Schools should never hide vital information from parents, yet that's exactly what the Rockford Public School District did. District employees didn't even notify Dan and Jennifer Meade, let alone seek their consent before beginning to call their young daughter by a masculine name and male pronouns. Worse, district policy required altering official records to conceal the district's action. By intentionally concealing this information from the Meads, the school district violated their constitutional right as parents to make decisions about their daughter's upbringing, education, and healthcare. We will continue to work toward final victory for the Meade family. So, in California, they would do that kind of stuff too. But one of the reasons why Florida had the parental rights and education bill is because there were schools that were secretly transitioning kids and hiding it from the parents. So that wasn't just a Ron DeSantis is just out there trying to be a bully or something. There was actual legislation that was necessary. So in Michigan, this is necessary. I don't ever want to see a school district do this to any kid, to any parent. And this needs to stop. So if I was Republicans in the legislature right now, I would try to put something together for the governor to sign, and she will obviously reject it, and they will obviously fight against that, and they should make that a legal battle pronto. And that should be a focus on the campaign trail. And if you're running for governor and you do not support a parental rights and education bill, you're not getting my vote in the primary. It's that simple. It's that simple. And if you're from a red state, you better inquire about your folks in government passing something like that. But this kind of stuff can't stand. It's disgusting. And changing the medical records of the child and the deception, like the idea of like a stranger, maybe you don't want to say they're stranger because they're a teacher in a school because they see these people every day, but these people don't have to bury the child if something happens to them, that they take their life, or there's in some kind of accidents, the parents who have to bury and mourn them, So did the idea that these people would be like, oh, let's hide this thing, even though there's there's a disconnect from the body and the mind, and that's something that they should really get help for that child, and just be like, we're going to live this secret double life. Don't tell your parents. We won't tell your parents. That's infuriating to me. And if I was a parent, I would not allow my children to go to those schools. That's insane. So it said it's amazing how much power the LGBT, a bunch of letters have. It is amazing. But they are getting a lot of pushback. It's, the pendulum has swung, that was a big determining factor for Donald Trump defeating Kamala Harris. And maybe we're at a point where maybe in Michigan they can really push a law, but it is necessary, and they better try. They better try and hammer any Democrat who decides that they're not going to go along with that. Anyway, that is the show for today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on the website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream, run my site, all that good stuff. You guys can also check out different merch that's available at the store. We got the My Money, My Business. We also got the some pro-life stuff. We got also, excess Club X lifetime membership stuff. So you guys can get that stuff as well. And tomorrow, I just want to remind you guys, I will not be live. I will have a show that will stream the same time, but I will not be live. So when you guys are leaving your wonderful comments, I am not ignoring you. I just wanted to let you know, because I do have like a event to get to, and I just don't want to be too late. So so stuff will air, you know, be filmed, and then it'll air later, but it'll air, no, later for me, but it will be the same time for you guys, and it'll be on time because it'll be scheduled. So just want to let you guys know that. Okay, God bless you guys, and I'll see you live on Friday, but there will be